Welcome to Learning Lovecraft with Ken James and Jason McKittrick, brought to you by Cryptocurium.
We were sitting on a dilapidated 17th century tomb in the late afternoon of an autumn day at the old burying ground in Arkham, and speculating about the unnamable.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Learning Lovecraft. I'm your host, Jason McKittrick, and joining me, as always, the traveler of the Eldritch Path, Mr. Ken James.
What's going on, folks?
And tonight, as always, we are delving into the mysterious world of H.P. Lovecraft. Tonight's focus, the Unnamable.
And boy, was it.
It was. Just two creepy dudes just hanging out.
You know what? I am the biggest fan of just two spooky dudes.
Yeah.
Just spooking it out, like me and you.
Yeah, kind of, man.
Know?
Yeah.
I got this was is this me and Jay hanging out in the cemetery vibes?
It's kind of got that vibe because when you want to talk about spooky stuff and you want to set the right kind of like tone, it's like, hey, you want to go hang out in the cemetery? And then it just turns into this.
It's like, yes.
Yeah.
And but we would kind of be on the same page with most of what we were talking about. We wouldn't have
so.
this little dynamic that was in this story.
No, but
which I appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I get it.
And before we go full on, I'm gonna go back to the one format we used to do, my little overview here.
Okay.
This story straight up gave me Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark vibes. It's the format of, like, they do that, and even the way he builds it up with the opening quote, setting it up, that you just read, obviously. And they go back and forth how they're talking about it, and it's almost like that, the bad news, or there's a couple other stories that are in there of, like, just how it has the vibe of just almost folklore in a way, because the way they're describing folklore and then the story within the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
it does.
I got a lot of the Scary Stories Tell the Dark vibes of just like this seemed like it was either the inception of a folklore or someone reaching in and telling their buddy a really scary story.
Okay. All right.
And then obviously it turns...
and then the monster actually shows up after they tell the story.
So it's even like you get in the thing when you like have the couple guys just talking, next to the hayfield.
Yeah.
Like that was the kind of vibe I got. So
sure.
I'm going to throw that out there. It might have been a little jumbled, but...
No, perfect. And that's definitely the vibe of the story. Anyone who's, into the horror kind of thing, and, like the quote that we got there, that aside from just them talking about horror, they've set the scene, right? We're hanging out in a graveyard. We're in Arkham. It's an autumn afternoon, and they're discussing the Unnamable.
And it was overcast sky, too.
Oh, what? Maybe.
No, it was.
I was thinking golden hour.
Oh, okay. All right.
The leaves coming through, the sun coming through the leaves.
Okay. I'm just saying the best stuff happens.
Well,
in
you're
overcast.
wrong.
I was going to say the only thing that could have made that intro better if he was like two husky horror dudes.
Well, Howard was not husky, so. Yeah, well, this is like Depression times. Nobody was husky. So, a return to our friend Randolph Carter. Possibly. It's believed that this is Randolph Carter, even though he doesn't call him Randolph. Lovecraft likes to use that character as his stand-in. So the incident in this story is going to be alluded to down the road in a story, The Silver Key. So, and it'll tell us later about him coming back to Arkham and things like that. So this is... this very much probably is the Carter from the stories, but this Carter not actually believing in the supernatural stuff kind of flies in the face of what happened in the statement of Randolph Carter when he was with his buddy and they, the phone call, the you fool, Warren is dead, that whole thing.
But this could be after what happened. You know what I mean?
This could be before.
Before, you'd think?
Yeah, because that Randolph Carter, after he saw that, would not be this guy. This guy would be before. There's no... These things don't really happen.
Okay, and that could work in the fact that this Carter writes stories.
Right.
Where he's not just like a lab tech or whatever the other Randolph Carter was.
He was just there to carry the cables and get the phone set.
That would make sense being like, okay, he writes stories, he finds this guy that does all this kind of spooky stuff.
Right.
Why not help him out, become an assistant, tag along, and maybe get some inspiration for a story.
Right.
Okay, I get that.
Right. And then also, it's obvious when we get to it, but this Carter is also like a stand-in or a reflection of Lovecraft himself. Because they talk about, there's the quote where he says, my constant talk about unnamable and unmentionable things was a very puerile device, quite in keeping with my lowly standing as an author. And he was too fond of ending stories with sights or sounds which paralyzed my heroes' faculties and left them without courage, words, or associations to tell them that they had experienced. So, and that's like right in standing with Lovecraft's work up to this point in his career.
Well, right at first, but like the first half of the story, I thought this was anecdotal.
Right.
I was like, oh, is he just doing like a cool little thing about himself here?
Yeah.
Like I swear, like because once again,
Yeah.
I don't look up anything.
Yeah.
You tell me the stories to read,
Yeah.
I dive in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is a little break, but then
Yeah.
as things unfold, I'm like,
Right.
oh, it's actually a story.
I mean, it uses autobiographical elements for sure, because his buddy in the story, Joel Manton, is actually based on Lovecraft's real friend Maurice Moe, because Manton is a principal at this high school while Moe taught at a high school, and Maurice Moe, who Joel Manton is the stand-in for, was a religious believer in contrast to Carter and Lovecraft's skepticism.
Right.
So that's where we're at there. So you have these two guys, they're pals, they, maybe they bond over, horror stories or whatever it is, or they're just, two intellectuals that just have two somewhat opposing ideologies.
It's super funny how, like, at points he kind of goes like, you get a little scared at the, like, ghosts and stuff. He's like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
He's like, because, he says, everything's experienced from our five senses plus our religious
Right.
superstitions or whatever however he says it. But,
yes.
It's funny that, like, he gives him that, like, your ghost stuff's cute,
Yeah. Yes.
Your spirits, the faces in the window that used to sit there and peer out, like...
Yep.
It's like, what's wrong with my thing, Like,
Exactly.
And then he starts pulling them in,
Sure. Like a good writer would.
Exactly.
So right after that opening quote, he talks about this giant willow in the center of the cemetery, and like the mood already starts because he's like talking about how the trunk nearly engulfed the ancient slab that was there, and talking about how like it was probably sucking this like unmentionable nourishment with its colossal roots from he calls it the charnel earth from what's buried there.
Yeah.
And then right there, his friend turns around and he's like, no one's been buried here in a century, so I don't know what you're talking about. So it's right there. It's like this dude is not Mr. Flights of Fancy, like the guy walking around with the imagination. Like, I wonder he's just not in that world, and he kind of gives him shit for it because he's like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. He's like, so he hits him with more of this practical type nature, I guess you could say, because for him, all things and feelings had these fixed dimensions, like you said, the fixed dimensions, properties, causes, and effects. And although, like, we only have like a vague understanding how the mind holds visions and sensations, he believed he was justified in drawing an arbitrary line and ruling that cannot be experienced and understood by the average citizen, right? So it's like there's a line, and he certainly, Manton, was almost sure that nothing can really be unnameable. It's like, it's not even like, it's not sensible to him. Like, he just can't, he's like, because you can name, anything's going to be given a name.
Right.
It's like anything. Like, even if it's like, oh, disgusting monster, you gave it a name. So how is it unnameable? So this guy, he's just not, it's not lining up for him. Right.
No, but I see, I'm kind of that same way with things. Like, I'm like, even if it's like some kind of mystery creature or entity, I like to put a label on it. Yeah, I mean, and that's human nature. You're going to. So we get this next passage.
Though I well realize the futility of imaginative and metaphysical arguments against the complacency of an orthodox sun-dweller, something in the scene of this afternoon colloquy moved me to more than usual contentiousness. The crumbling slate slabs, the patriarchal trees, and the centuried gambrel roofs of the witch-haunted old town that stretched around all combined to rouse my spirit in defense of my work, and I was soon carrying my thrusts into the enemy's own country.
Yeah, so he's letting the mood kind of set it for him, and they have this back and forth. He has his points, Manton has his points, and they're there for a while, and they finally realize that it's about Twilight. But they didn't feel like talk. They stopped talking. They were having a great time. They were having their little back and forth. It was civil.
Yeah.
They didn't want to kill each other because they disagreed.
Yeah, which is weird. Because I'm under the impression that if you disagree with someone, you should probably fight it to the death,
Maybe.
Duke it out, right?
Maybe.
That's what I'm told on the news.
Jesus Christ. So at this point, Manton is unimpressed by Carter's arguments, and everything he says, he's just eager to refute him. Boom, he's got, he's like, no, because this, well, if you say this, I say this. Like, he's got the antidote for all his points.
He's like, I'm dug in.
Yeah.
You can't change. I'm not going to change.
Right. That's an interesting point, but you're wrong.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense. It could have changed my whole perspective on it, but no.
Yeah.
Because this is what I think.
Right, and he's definitely dug in, and then he even mentions that he has this confidence in his opinions because this is what caused his success as a teacher, because he's in this world of arguing of things and being in the world of logic, and this is this because this is this, we know what this is, this is the visible world, this is what we say.
Well, yeah, he's the pragmatist. He's the everything's he's comfortable in the way he lays everything out.
Yeah.
And he wants it's cozy there. It's safe there in his beliefs.
Yep.
In his believies.
And his coziness is also mirrored by Carter's coziness, because he even says that I was too sure of my ground to fear defeat. Because he's like, I got this. Yeah. He's like, I live in this cemetery. You're just here today.
I'm so sure. Yeah. I'm going to fear defeat.
Yeah. Yep. So we get this next passage.
The dusk fell and lights faintly gleamed in some of the distant windows, but we did not move. Our seat on the tomb was very comfortable, and I knew that my prosaic friend would not mind the cavernous rift in the ancient root. Disturbed brickwork close behind us, or the utter blackness of the spot brought by the intervention of a tottering, deserted 17th century house between us and the nearest lighted road. There in the dark upon that riven tomb by the deserted house, we talked on about the unnamable, and after my friend had finished his scoffing, I told him of the awful evidence behind the story at which he had scoffed the most.
Scoffing.
Yeah. So he's drawing him in.
Yeah.
He's letting the scene set itself. Yep. He's like, they're like, you could tell he's like, all right, any minute he's going to realize we're in a graveyard from the 1700s, and
it's getting dark.
Yeah. Yep. He's like, I'm tightening the noose.
Yeah.
So Carter tells about his tale that he wrote, The Attic Window, that appeared in the January 1922 issue of Whispers. It's like, this is so Howard.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because he's kind of making fun of the names and the titles of the publications that he works through.
This is a good example of Lovecraft's been accused of being humorless, and it's just not true.
No, it's not true at all.
Not only is his humor everywhere in his stories, but it's so well placed and so like sandwiched within the stories that it's it's masterful. And
well, that's the thing. It's people that don't
It's not funny, haha.
Yeah, people that understand humor is going like, oh, is it a knee slapper? They're like, oh, did you
Yeah.
Did you go like or like make some oh, is it not a catchphrase on SNL? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, that's how people are.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, did you do a funny accent? Is it like, they don't understand a turn of phrase, a clever turn of phrase. And especially with literary humor, that's a whole different thing.
Because it's nested, and you have to read enough of it, and especially with Lovecraft, you have to know that there's stuff that he's talking about here. It's him defending his own work from his friends who are probably like, Howard, enough of this nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Or again with this Unnamable, because he probably heard it from his boys that were like, Howard, read your story.
Yeah.
Again with the fainting and the cleansing lightning bolt.
Yeah, and he took it. I love how he took it and was just like, Unnamable. You know what I mean? Like, he gave it that thing. He gave it the tag.
Yeah.
So it's like, at that point,
he threw it down.
Yeah, he was like,
Unnamable.
oh, Unnamable. There it is. And it's like, you could tell too. Like, that's why I thought literally, I was like, this has to be anecdotal until okay, I go, oh wait, once all of a sudden
Right.
in your mind's eye,
Right.
or ears, you hear the
Right. This is him walking around the cemetery. This is how I would get them.
yeah.
So he tells us about this story, and then he tells us about that in some places, especially the South and Pacific coast, they took the magazines off the stands at the complaints of silly milksops. But New England didn't get the thrill and merely shrugged its shoulders at my extravagance. This is also autobiographical. So I want to say the year before, or maybe the same year, very recently, Lovecraft worked with another author, and they put this story out called The Love Dead, which was about necrophilia. And to read it now, it's ridiculous. We're not going to cover it because it's a collaboration, and it's not necessary. Maybe towards the back end, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's really not necessary. But the story's about necrophilia, and people freaked out in the Midwest somewhere, and all these issues were pulled, and at the time, apparently, it affected his ability to get some magazines to accept his stories.
Well,
You fucking dead bodies, Howard?
yeah. What's up, man? Hey, Howard.
They're not pig people.
That's funny too. People are still as opposed, even his buddies that
Yeah.
he's cleared side. They're going hey, Howard, read your last story.
Yeah.
Didn't really give us what the monster was, the bad guy. They're not going, hey, Howard, how about that one with the fucking the dead people?
He's like, it's not my story.
Yeah.
She's not my cousin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
If you get the reference, kudos.
yeah.
So he starts to tell him about the story, and it's based off this New England legend, and telling about these gathering these stories about these these shut-ins and these children or family members that could be shut in these upper rooms and things, and he tells him about this. He tells Manton about this old diary that he went through these family papers, and it was in this diary that was kept between 1706 and 1723, and he got it from a place that was not even a mile from where they're sitting right now. He's closing the news. So he talks about this diary, and there's this reality about these scars that was left on his ancestor, who this diary came from, about these scars that were left on his chest and back that was described in this diary. And
at this point, though, I'm wait, is he really telling you about this real diary, or is he just using this to set his buddy up? But it is innocuous going forward. He's once again, he leaves you, and it's like him showing the effectiveness of what he does.
Yes, because this is also anecdotal. There are stories of Lovecraft taking people. There's I forget her name, but it was a fellow writer who was a female that he was hanging out with, and they would do this thing where they would walk around. He would walk around with all his friends, and he was in a graveyard one night and told her a ghost story, and she ran out of the cemetery screaming because he scared her so much.
That's so good.
This is
That's so good.
Yeah. So this is him showing you what he does.
And I love too that he's also flexing his muscles against his friends. You know what? I can take you and all you guys. I'll put you in a story and I'll make me right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's doing the Dave Chappelle write the joke backwards.
Right.
That's what he's doing here.
Yep. Howard did it first. So.
He did. So, telling about the diary, and that's a good point. Is it real or not? Who knows? And then he also talks about the fears of others in the region and how they were whispered down for generations. About how there's that this boy who went into the house, the 1793 house, and it was abandoned.
The perceived hero of his story.
Yes, to examine the certain traces suspected to be there, and they said, well, he lost his mind, but they're like, well, did he? It's it's still cloudy because of how long ago it was. But in this diary, he brings it up again about these. There's these tales of these creatures with the blemished eye seen at windows, right? In the night or in deserted meadows near the woods. And he tells about specifically the story that something had caught his ancestor on a dark valley road, leaving him with marks of horns on his chest and of ape-like claws on the back. And when they looked for prints in the trampled dust, they found the mixed marks of split hooves and vaguely anthropoid paws.
That's just him mixing his stories up there to use at this point. It's
kinda.
It's because it's two different things, that wouldn't be on the same creature, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it kind of sounds like a classic devil. Horns,
sure, yeah.
claws, and cloven hooves.
Well, I just meant with like him going with like the monkey hands, and I get the horns and the hooves, but I was thinking like just some kind of like mixed creature.
Sure, I think what he's doing here.
I see. You know, you're absolutely right, because talking about the skull later on.
I think what he's doing here. This is like classic New England like devil stuff, like witchcraft devil stuff. Like, oh, there was a devil roaming the countryside,
also
kind
Jersey.
of thing. Also Jersey, different kind. That one has wings.
Napoleon's brother didn't see this.
Exactly. And then we also have the account of a post rider who saw an old man chasing and calling to a frightful, loping, nameless thing on Meadow Hill in the thinly moonlit hours before dawn, and many believed him. Then we also get that there was strange talk one night in 1710 when the childless, broken old man was buried in the crypt behind his own house in sight of the blank slate slab. They never unlocked that attic door, but left the whole house as it was, dreaded and deserted. So we got this other thing, like the thing happened at this house. He loves it. Awful things. We're just going to leave it locked up. Don't go in there.
Yeah. There's like like in Red Dead Redemption, there's something like that.
Yeah.
And also in The Witcher 3, there's something like that.
That's cool.
It's literally ghosts in this house, don't go in there, and you as the Witcher, you have to figure out what's in there. It's pretty sick.
That's cool. It's a trope that's been around. So they never unlocked the attic door, but they left the whole house as it was, like I said, dreaded and deserted. When noises came from it, they whispered and shivered and hoped that the lock on the attic door was strong. It's like, what the fuck is up there?
Yeah. Please hold, please hold, please hold.
Right,
please.
right. Then they stopped hoping when the horror occurred at the parsonage, leaving not a soul alive or in one piece. So the clergy got it.
He got it bad.
Yeah. And then within the years after the legends it starts to take on this like spectral character, right? Because if it was a living thing at this point, it must be dead. So how could this thing be alive? Very similar to the Jersey Devil tale. They're like, well, if that thing was one, you got it, man. I give it to you. You got it. Got him.
Got him.
So if it was a living thing, it must be dead by now. So it must have some kind of supernatural like essence to it or something, right? And it lingers on for years. So it's this thing that happens in this area. So after Carter tells all this stuff, he notices that Manton has become kind of quiet now, and he kind of sees it working on him, and he sees that the words have impressed him a little bit. Maybe a couple little.
Is this at the part where he says that I was impressed with him staying interested? And I forget how he puts it. Oh, man.
I'm not sure.
He puts it in Howard phrasing.
Okay.
About.
But what he does mention is that he did not laugh anytime that he paused now, because now he's like sucked into the story. Because every time he would pause, like in the beginning, what we were saying, he'd say something, he would refute it. He would say something, he would refute it. Now he's all in.
Yeah.
And then he was asking serious questions, and he was like, well, what about the boy who went mad in 1793? And who he thought was the hero of the fiction, and it's not. And he told him why the boy had gone to the shunned, deserted house, and remarked that he ought to be interested since he believed that windows retained latent images of those who had sat at them. Now, this is one of those we start to get into that. Even though Manton is a pragmatist, he believes in some of these like old wives' tales.
Yeah.
Right. So this is one, and I looked this up. Yeah, apparently that's an old thing that people thought if someone stared into a window pane long enough, like their image would get imprinted in it.
Right.
It's like an old New England thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure that has its hands in ghost stories too. It's just like one of those things.
Yep. And so they think that it's like, oh well, the boy had gone to look at the windows, and he went up to the horrible attic, and maybe he saw one of these images in the thing, which is a New England thing, I guess, and came back screaming maniacally.
What if he saw himself looking out the window?
I mean, maybe. Bogus.
Can I keep you?
Again. And after he says this, Manton kind of like, he says he sits back and kind of thinks about it for a little while, and you can tell he might be reverting to that analytical mood. And he said to him, you can tell him he's in the mood, but he's kind of like half in, because he says to him, he's like, all right, well, let's say for the sake of argument, some unnatural monster did really exist. And even if it did, it wasn't unnameable.
Yeah.
And that's where he's getting him. He's like, well, how could it be unnameable? And that's like the sticking point for him. It's like, and you could tell it's the guy you're trying to explain the thing to. The artist, it's like, dude, suspend disbelief for 20 minutes. And they just, it's like, well, yeah, but...
I used to have these arguments with my buddy Mike Boyd. Mm-hmm. I used to have these and like, he was one of these guys that were like, even though you're showing him every angle of it,
yep,
he would still just like go like, but blank. And you're like...
Yeah. Yep. And, then he even mentions, okay, he talks about the spectral legends, the apparitions, that it's not organic, apparitions of gigantic bestial forms, sometimes visible and sometimes only tangible, which floated about on moonless nights and haunted the old house, the crypt, and the grave where a sapling had sprouted beside that slab, tombstone. And he even discusses where it's like, could these, let's say that the apparitions exist, and if they exist, now they have this ability to exist and be these ghost things, but they can actually like harm people. They can actually like attack people.
He's like, what are they, Japanese?
And that's the thing, is he's like, it's either one or the other. Are they spectral? But then if they're not spectral, then they have no body, but then they're solid, and it's like they're doing the mental gymnastics for it. You know what I'm saying? And
verbal judo.
Yes. Yeah. So he's just saying that this is like one of these things that, like, he even says that these kind of things don't last very long because they have a lack of being thought about. You know what I mean? Like it's a thing that just doesn't. It's like you get to a sticking point almost. That's the way I read it.
Right, and also too, though, like you're saying, like, people don't think about it or they don't see that because they're just going off of old wives' tales or what they're known.
Yeah.
What is Gen Pop talking points, like commonplace even back then too.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, oh, witches,
Yeah.
Witches haunt and they do witchcraft, and that's what is the supernatural paranormal. It's not these, nebulous entities that can and cannot exist in corporeal form.
Yes, exactly. So he mentions that the hour had grown very late at this point. They've been talking there for a while. And I love this little detail that a singularly noiseless bat brushed by me, and I believe it touched Manton also, for although I could not see him, I felt him raise his arm. Presently he spoke. Like, that's cool. You're sitting there in the dark, you know that your buddy's there, and like you're like, oh, and then you hear him go like this. It's like you're in that almost a heightened sense, you know what I mean? Like, you're having the conversation, but you're in like not maybe the safest place, so you're still a little bit.
Oh, dude, yeah. A
little bit heightened.
Any time that even if you're not in a spooky place, and someone's telling you a story, you get the goosebumps, your hairs go up, and naturally, you literally start to kind of feel the stuff around you.
Yeah, I mean it's the location is playing on Manton because Carter is doing that.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm just saying, if you're not in a spooky place, and then when you're in there, super hypersensitive, you get the other senses that aren't the like scientific ones, because you literally do have more than 5 senses.
Right.
And but like, have you ever been there when a noiseless bat has flown by, bro? It sucks, because like even right now out back at my place, I'll be walking my dog, all of a sudden, like, it's not even like you see it, you're like, oh god, that's a bat. Oh god. We used to play basketball by my mom's, and there used to be bats like crazy. You'd go off for a shot, and all of a sudden you're like, oh god, that goes into the woods. You're not getting that ball back.
Oh yeah, no, I grew up in the Pine Barrens, so there's bats everywhere.
What am I talking?
Our backyard, like, we just go out there and you'd sit there and you'd hear them because they would go past you.
A bat walks up. Yeah, a bat walks up to you with a coffee. What's up, man?
No, hey, what's up? Yeah, we're safe because we're protected by the Jersey Devil. Yeah. So anyway, we're in this heightened state, and then Manton asks. He goes, he asks him if that house is still standing and deserted, and Carter says, "Yeah, I've seen it."
Yeah.
And he goes, well, did you find anything in there, in the attic or anywhere else?
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. And he says there were some bones up under the eaves. No big deal, I guess. They may have been what the boy saw. And if he was sensitive, he would have needed nothing more than that with the window glass to set him going. Especially if he was there, like, oh, what's going to be here? Like these, these YouTuber guys or whatever. They go to a place and just the slightest thing sets them off.
Even just YouTubers go back to Dude Run, just any any of these guys on that have paranormal shows. Yeah, they're all screaming and running. It's wild.
Right. So he finds the bones there, Carter, and he decides that it would have been, in his mind, kind of blasphemous to leave these bones out. So he goes back with a sack and took them to the tomb behind the house. And there was an opening where he could dump them in. And then he tells him, he's like, you should have seen that skull. It had 4-inch horns, but a face and jaw something like yours or mine. And when he says that, Manton once again reflects for a while silently, and he's like, I'd like to see that house, Carter.
This house, I must see it.
Yeah, where is it? Glass or no glass, I must explore it a little. He says, and the tomb where you put those bones and the other grave without an inscription, the whole thing must be a bit terrible. And then he goes, you did see it until it got dark.
Oh my god.
And he even says here that he didn't expect him to get so scared.
Yeah.
Because when he says it, he kind of moved away, neurotically a little bit, huh! And he actually said he does cry out a little bit with a sort of gulping gasp. So it's like a...
Yeah.
What? We're right next to it?
Yeah. Oh, no. But that part is so great.
But the best part of it is that this weird, odd cry that goes, it gets answered. And while it was still echoing, he hears a creaking sound through the blackness, and knew that it was a lattice window that was opening in that old house that they're sitting right next to. And it's not even that far away. They're sitting right next to it. It's the house they're sitting next to.
A gulping gasp. I want to.
And because I
don't know. But a gulping. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But it answers him back. Yeah. So I wonder if it was a mimic or just he's like, and the other thing was like, and then immediately while it was still echoing, he says he heard the window open, and now but then he also kind of deduces because of the sound, it must have been from the attic window because it was glassless. So they're like, okay, not only is this coming from the house, it's coming from the attic, which is where this thing was said to have been kept or dwelled.
Now at this point you're like, okay, is that stuff from the diary or whatever, is this a true story now?
It's almost like, and we'll get to it, but it's almost like he gets these ideas, he has them all in his mind, and he's using them for effect to try to build this story.
Right.
But in the grand Lovecraftian tradition, it's not only does it turn out to be true, but it also is worse and it attacks them, kind of thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying up until this point, it was definitely him luring his friend to win this argument.
Yeah. Yeah, because he wanted to bring him to the place. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to get this motherfucker. Yeah. He got me at the bar. I'm getting him in the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the bar, the library. Howard ain't going to no bar.
Well, this is Randolph Carter, so.
It's still. So, we get this next passage.
Then came a noxious rush of noisome, frigid air from that same dreaded direction, followed by a piercing shriek just beside me on that shocking rifted tomb of man and monster. In another instant, I was knocked from my gruesome bench by the devilish threshing of some unseen entity of titanic size but undetermined nature, knocked sprawling on the root, clutched mold of that abhorrent graveyard, while from the tomb came such a stifled uproar of gasping and whirring that my fancy peopled the rayless gloom with Miltonic legions of the misshapen damned. There was a vortex of withering ice-cold wind, and then the rattle of loose bricks and plaster. But I had mercifully fainted before I could learn what it meant.
Mercifully fainted.
Yes. So something comes out and knocks them both down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, it's is he crap? It's Randolph Carter like, crap, I made this happen. You know, like I called this into existence.
Or he's just like, I think that actually calls into more than, I mean, for the story's sake, not reality's sake, but for the story's sake, it's like, yes, the diary's real. He collected all these legends that he scoffs at, and he's kind of given a dose of his own medicine because he's scoffing at the reality of all this. Because he's like, oh, I'm just going to use it to scare this guy. I know it's not real, but he's gonna get it because he still believes in ghosts. He's a religious guy. I'm going to get him, no problem. But it turns on him because this creature that he thought was just a New England legend actually just turns out to be real.
Yeah.
And then they faint.
Yeah. I got to tell you, man, I didn't know people could faint. Like, there's always someone fainting in these stories. You know?
It is interesting, and it's definitely a literary device because, I think I've seen people faint before, but it's not from fear. And if the people, and I've seen people fear from phobia responses, but it's not because they're afraid. It's because of the
it's the adrenaline. The adrenaline pumps, and then everyone reacts different. Yeah.
So the actual it's I don't know. Maybe there was more common back then. I don't know.
They used to have the vapors back then.
And he just uses it as a literary device.
I'm just saying, it's just I like it. I'm just saying, but it's so funny that like someone's always just like, you know.
And it's a good cut.
No,
because he's working like, even though these are stories,
it's
and
the faint, it's the cleansing bolt, the lightning bolt.
He's using them as even though this predates it, he's using them as like cinematic devices. It's like, well, how do I move to the next scene without well, if the monster's there, are they going to walk back? And so we get this scene where we find that they wake up.
Yeah, much like you throw in like a when you're moving to the next part, or like a
like a dissolve or a sound.
Yeah.
Well, you'll hear one in this episode.
Yeah, you hear them in all.
So he mentioned that Manton was smaller than him, but he was more resilient, apparently. But they opened their eyes at almost the same instant.
That meant he works out.
Right. Despite his greater injuries. Yeah. Which is interesting. And then they said that their couches were side by side, and they knew that in a few seconds they were in the hospital, St. Mary's Hospital.
On couches.
On couches. Maybe just a different word for gurney or something,
Or like Ottoman style.
Maybe.
Like head up. Like, ugh.
I gotcha. The attendants were like grouped around him, and they were curious to see what was going on, and they wanted to let him know. They were like, "Oh, because they had no idea what happened," and they wanted to let him know how they got there, and they tell him that a farmer who had found them at noon in a lonely field beyond Meadow Hill, which was mentioned earlier, a mile from the old burying ground, on a spot where an ancient slaughterhouse is reputed to have stood.
Love that.
Yep. Manton had 2 large wounds on his chest and some less severe cuts or gougings, so maybe suggested by a claw, on his back. Carter was not seriously hurt, but he was covered with welts and contusions of the most bewildering character.
Here's what happened.
Including the print of a small split hoof. What happened?
So, Manton gets bull rushed.
Gets gored.
Yeah, gets gored.
Yeah.
Then his back gets grabbed after that.
Yeah.
Our boy Howard, or Randolph, gets his leg grabbed.
Yeah.
He just drags him.
Yeah.
Towards the end, he gets slammed, and Howard, or Randolph, gets the footprint on him when he does whatever else he does.
Yeah.
So all the bruises from...
He's all, from being dragged.
Yeah.
Like, oh! Dragged by one ankle.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe he gets stepped on accident at one point.
Yeah.
But the goring and the bull rush totally happens to our other buddy.
Right. You're probably right. A mile that way.
A mile they went.
Unconscious.
Yeah, because he got there and he's like, oh man, the booster shell's not here.
Yep. He's like, oh, and then the farmer found him. He's like, again?
Yeah. You don't have one of those hoof prints on your butt now, do you, boy?
Ooh. So, they're questioned by the doctors because they want to know what the hell happened here. They're like, what happened here? But Manton kind of like keeps it on the down low. He's like, I don't know. Like, we were just hanging out, and
we woke up. Cut 2.
Yeah, cut 2. They come up with a story that they were victims of a vicious bull. Though it was a difficult thing to place and account for. The doctors was like, they were like, a bull? Yeah. They're out there.
He's like, and they're vicious.
Yeah. Hey, man. What do you want me to do?
The doctor was like, bullshit.
Yep.
Zing.
Yep. So we'll let Howard take us out on this last quote here.
Good God, Manton. But what was it? Those scars. Was it like that? And I was too dazed to exult when he whispered back a thing I had half expected. No, it wasn't that way at all. It was everywhere. A gelatin, a slime. Yet it had shapes, 1,000 shapes of horror beyond all memory. There were eyes and a blemish. It was the pit, the maelstrom, the ultimate abomination. Carter was the Unnamable.
Dude, and right there in that description, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, that's all of those things. It's everything, right? But nothing.
Yeah. I think because it becomes the Unnamable because they were attacked so quickly and it was just this jumble of things, and it was like, well, yeah, it became Unnamable because you were completely discombobulated in every way.
Sure.
That you had little snippets of what the thing that it was that attacked you, that it was like, because you get the gelatin and the slime. Maybe the thing licked them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like...
Well, that's what I was going to say. It had shapes and forms of this gelatin
Yeah.
and slime. Like, what the freak, man?
Yeah.
What the flip, as my mom would say.
Yeah. What the Christ?
She wouldn't say that one. But yeah, maybe. See, yeah, maybe. I get what you're saying, and
Yeah.
a logical man would say that's what was going on.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it was like this amorphous thing.
It could be, yeah.
It came in like what was it? The Immortals, where they moved like all.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like that kind of thing. I don't know.
This prefigures the Shuggoth, but we'll get to that.
Hey, guess what?
Yeah, I know you don't know what it is. Yes, I think it's just that it kind of illustrates the fact that, like, well, now he had an experience, now he went through it, and now he will respect forever his writing about unnamable things, because now he's experienced one, and not a vicious bull.
Yeah. And I love how he was kind of like ride or die there.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I don't know, doctor was a bull. And he's like,
Yeah.
Brenda.
Yeah. And also, like, it's... So, you know, the blemished eye thing and the whole thing, it's like, it's just this monstrous thing that lives up in this attic, and it could be anything. It doesn't mean that it's like, it's not an offspring of anybody. It's not a, you know, we're in New England, so it could be any kind of weird thing. It could be some product of like witchcraft or conjuring some kind of demon, some kind of thing.
Well, that's where I would certainly venture to go to.
And that's the great part, because that's also like in the last story we discussed. You get these things where Lovecraft doesn't... you okay?
Yeah. So.
Rats in the walls. Don't cry.
That's not a cry. That's like a...
You get this thing where it's like it only... you can only describe it... Lovecraft doesn't describe it all the way. He lets you get to it, too. So there's always going to be a little bit different. Like, well, I viewed it as this, or I viewed it... And that's what's cool about this, because... You know, it was everywhere, a gelatin, a slime, yet it had shapes, 1,000 shapes of horror beyond all memory.
Yeah.
Eyes, a blemish. It was the pit, the maelstrom, the ultimate abomination. It was this guy's ultimate fear. Like, he was sitting there, he was like, I have, you know, even though he was a religious guy, believed in ghosts, he probably was like, oh, they look like people in sheets.
Yeah.
God is over here. He's blonde hair, blue eyes, with a beard. He has this whole preconceived notion dug in. He has his ideas, and then this thing attacks them.
Right, and also, though, the description of it is kind of like how Howard, in his stories, we're on a first-name basis, I can call him that.
Yeah.
In his stories, he'll give you little snippets here and there of things. Mm-hmm. Like in the last one, the monster was all of it.
Yeah.
The monster was the people, it was the Nephiliotep.
It was monstrous.
It was the whole thing. The house... See, everything there was the being. Yeah. So when he's like, it's the, you know, it was the slime, the Ivan Ooze, it was the goo, it was the, you know, he's like,
are you saying Ivan
forms.
Ooze attacked them?
He's part of it.
He's part of it, okay.
Yeah. The little horns on his chin.
Yeah.
He's basically like that whole like encompassing description of the thing that attacked them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all the stuff that Howard does. It's the maelstrom, it's the pit, that's all the monster.
Yes.
That is the Unnamable.
Yes, sir.
So part of it. Case closed. Podcast done. Ken James, I'm out. No,
I gotcha. No, man, totally. It's, you gotta love how he does that. And, you know, sometimes he gives a name to it. And sometimes he gives a name of it without naming it. So the Unnamable becomes the name of that feeling. Also, that name could be Nyarlathotep.
Yeah.
Because that's certainly, now with 2 stories, it certainly has a feeling to it. Building towards that.
It's thick.
It is thick black slime.
Yeah. Yep.
It's gross.
That's what I picture. Blackish purple slime.
Yeah.
Fucking.
Yeah.
It's gross.
It is. Yeah.
There was something I was gonna say, but I lost it with my whole rant.
It's okay.
Yeah, let's go on. Oh no, I love that. Like, even at the end of this, Howard depicts himself as a giant pussy.
He never really inflates himself. I mean, these are stand-ins, which is great.
Yeah, it's great because he's just like, my buddy's more stout than I, and he got way worse wounds.
Because he knows his friends are going to read this too.
Yeah, right. So he'll break him down at the end. He's like,
yeah,
we good?
Yeah, they're like, benching 450, huh, Howard? I don't think so.
They're like, read your last story. Made out with mad chicks last weekend, Howard?
Yep.
But no, I love that he's just like, me being the giant pussy that I am, waking up next to my friend who got mauled.
Yeah. He's like, I fared way better than he because I got the least of it, and he still pulled out.
Yeah. And he looked at me and he was just like, your mind, Howard, is great. That's what it was.
He's like, all right, I'll listen to you from now on.
Yeah. They were like, great story, man.
Yeah.
I survived. And you're a giant pussy, but you're a cool...
Hey, could you do a favor? Stop wearing those doily collar things and the wrist things.
No
please,
frilly
no
laces.
frilly. Enough.
Enough.
Yeah.
We're good, Howard.
Yeah.
Look, you can come to the party next weekend.
Yeah. But if you show up in a powdered wig, you're getting thrown out.
Tell that story you just told.
No powdered wig.
No wig. No frock.
Yep. No frock. No silk socks.
Yeah.
No buckle shoes.
He's like, if you're gonna wear the silk socks, wear them under real socks.
If you need them to, get in your headspace, just to have them on, but nobody else sees.
He's like, how many hats and shoes with buckles do you have? Wear those.
Yeah. He's like, I have enough.
Yeah.
So that's the Unnamable, I guess.
Right.
No, it's I love it, and I love that it's a little introspection on Howard and the way that his things work. And I like that he came at it with, clearly he was getting ribbed on by his boys, and and maybe a few letters got written into some of these magazines. Yeah. And he's taking it in stride, and he's coming back with some humor, but also put whatever frustration he may have been getting by that and put it into his work.
Well, it's weird.
It's so fun.
It's a weird correlation, but I kept thinking of the Say Anything album in defense of the genre. Where it's just like that's what they kind of did with this, because it's a two-parter. The one was they made the one album was that he was cursed by a witch. Okay. That all of his emotions came out in song form.
Okay.
And it was defending in a weird way. I kind of correlated that to this.
Hey, sounds good. Sounds good.
Because this was in defense of his genre and what he does, but he did it in a way where all of this. Yeah. It's his stories and it's everything that goes, but in a way he like made reality a story and vice versa. So and it mirrors itself 3 times, because even after reading this, I'm sure all his buddies were like, "You're not going to take me to sense."
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It could have played out that other way.
And they hang out. They're like, "Let's take a walk." He's like, "Where are we going?"
This is house near the cemetery.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Stop.
Yeah. He wanted to show him his true power.
Right, but isn't that cool though? That like he could, after he did that, he could have done that.
He could have, but why? He was being truthful, and I think he was very concerned about being truthful on it, and that was the strength for him.
Yeah, but that could have been the fun. He could have a little fun. Well, no, he's not a fun guy in real life.
He is a fun guy, but he wants to have fun his way, and his fun in his way is he wants to scare people. He's a horror author.
Right, but I'm saying in real life, wouldn't he want to scare people? Well, he did tell the chick the ghost story.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying he could have used this to the people that criticize him, like, oh, what are we doing? Oh, let's take a walk.
Yeah, well, this is, obviously we don't know all the personal interactions he had after this.
I understand, but you're doing the whole, like, he did it here.
Yeah.
Shut up, he didn't need to do anything else. I get it.
Oh, no, I'm sure they did, but I'm saying, if here we are discussing this, and this is what he left behind for his own, like, hey, look what I did kind of thing, and he clearly liked it enough to send it in for publishing, that it's,
Well, like I said in a couple of them, like, he likes to, from, at this point, and from what I know, he likes to go like, oh, this is where this story's going. I can change it with these guys. Now, I can change it with the stroke of my pen.
Yeah.
and a lightning bolt can change the whole thing, that you knew what was going on.
Yeah, I think we're too far off to use the lightning bolt again. I think it was like...
Well, I'm just saying, like, he has a way, like, in those ones where he could be like, oh, I have this all built up, and he'll even get kind of, like, mad at the hero in the story, and he's like, oh, you're done, you know, like...
Yeah, but he's leaving everything within a way where it can be looked at as real. Whereas the cleansing bolt of
in this
lightning...
one, yes.
Yeah, but it has to be that way in this one, because this has to be like... Wow, all those weird supernatural things did happen, but it could also be written off as I got attacked by a bull. But, you know, Manton is saying that, you know, but it was the Unnamable. So it's like he can see that although they
even if it was a bull attack,
yeah.
his perceived visions, like everything he heard, all his senses, even if it was a bull, could be unnamable because of his perception of it or his experience with it. Yeah. Because he can't put a finger on what exactly happened.
Right.
His buddy fainted.
Yeah.
Not even getting beat up too bad.
Yeah.
No, I think this is great. I think this is actually so far the smaller, like his best smaller story with just, it's so clever how he did it. Yes. I'm not saying this is the scariest or like, I just think this is, as writing goes, this is my favorite of his smaller ones so far.
Yeah, no, it's tight, it's concise. He knew exactly what he wanted to say when he did this. Yeah. But then he was also able to indulge by putting in that New England stuff in there. Right. He uses his character. He uses the town of Arkham, which is great to see it pop up, which we will see once again, well, many times. And it just works. It's tight and it works.
Yeah, and this is different than any of the other stories. Yeah. This is the most different than anything that we've gotten to so far. Because like literally, like I said, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's you picked it up that's cool that you picked it up because you could see how different it was. I guess you've read enough at this point to see that it was so different, but also you could see the personal touch in there.
Oh yeah, well, like I said, I straight away, halfway through the story, until a couple things started happening, I was like, oh, I literally thought this might be like you'd give me the note and you'd be like, yeah, given to a journal, blah blah blah, like a journal into that to kind of like set up this and that, like you know, maybe it was like an interview or something. And then I was like, I'm a fool. That never happened. That would never happen. But like, you know, I just, you know, I totally dug it. I like I said, the folklore vibe. Yeah. Big, you know, and those who know me. Yeah. They know I'm a folklorist.
Interesting.
Not really. I just love folklore.
Oh no, who doesn't?
Yeah. A lot of people. You know what we call them? Stupid.
Masterful wordsmith. Boom. Ken James. Yeah, man. I mean, this is it. And I also like that how this is so different from Rats on the Walls because we just came off of that heavy story, and then this is like, oh, this is fun horror.
Yeah.
This is fun, real world relatable horror. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You don't have to like ponder and like try to like that story. You know what that story was like. The Rats on the Walls. You know when your like headphones get tangled, and you're there trying to like, what the? You gotta like stick the ear. You know what I'm saying?
I have Bluetooth earbuds. For this episode, I get what you're saying.
Extension cord tangled. No, it's when you, like there was so much in there that overlapped. That just sitting there, it got, and I needed you to help me be able to listen to some sick jams again.
Yeah, man.
No, it was it's this one is nice and cozy. Yep. Nice and comfy.
No, it's good stuff.
It's different from everything else. Yep. And then you get a monster at the end, or a ghost monster.
Some kind of ghost monster that was possibly summoned by a slaughterhouse, something, evil witches, who knows?
There's definitely witches involved.
I hope so. It's New England, there has to be. They even mentioned the witch-haunted town in the beginning.
Well, that's the thing. Yep. So you know that they're summoning some kind of 4-inch horned, you know... Some kind of imp. It's Dave Grohl from Pick of Destiny.
Love it.
But not that tall.
All right, so any closing statements for that, or we said it all?
I think we said it all. Just once again, you know, it was cool for him to actually give some insight into himself and how he felt about his buddies, and to be like, you know what, this is the coolest thing. You know what, guys? Yeah, I'm putting us all in the story. Yeah, or you know, you're the one character is all yous. Yeah, because he's from Philly now.
Yeah.
All U's.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I'm going to show you.
Yep.
I'm going to show you what's up.
And his boy Maurice Moe, he put on blast big time.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
100 years later, he's still on blast.
Yeah. I'm learning about him for the first time, and I'm like, yo, made him look like a bitch. Yeah. Those are my closing statements.
Nice.
He made Maurice Moe look like a bitch.
Excellent. So there's no casting needed because Randolph Carter is Howard, and we can just look up a picture of Maurice Moe, and that's who he is. Yeah, man. So next time, if you're following along on this journey, on this quest,
I'm hearing about this for the first time myself too. Oh, and I get to guess what it's about.
no, because we've read this story already. This is one of our favorites. But I think in rereading now,
You made me look like a bitch there.
yeah, it's fine. I'm good at it.
I'm the Mo to your Howard right
You got
now.
a hoof print on your back now. Next time, we are going to be covering the festival. Now, if you listen to our other podcast or have listened a few, we re-released it on this feed for Christmas.
Yes.
We previously recorded the festival with our good buddy, Greg Oliver Bodine, who joined us for the Hound episode.
Our boy Greg. Love that guy.
Love him. So we got the festival coming up, and now that we're going to reread it, and I know you did all the sound design on it, so you remember the story, but now you're going to have some prior knowledge going into of the stories now in reading it, so that might recolor your looking at the story.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to go and actually just like read it, as opposed to like hearing just Greg in my head over and over again, because I don't know if anyone knows about sound design or like doing all that.
Ken hears Greg in his mind like our boy heard the rats in the walls.
Yeah, Greg, when it comes to Dagon and the festival, Greg is the rats in the walls to me.
Yes.
And like, but he killed it. I have a great.
Well, you spent many hours with it, so that's why.
Yeah. Those two are my babies.
Yeah. Well, so if you're following along on the quest that is learning Lovecraft, go ahead and read the festival. Oh boy, we got some good ones coming up in the pipeline. Every week we get more coming.
And Jay keeps telling me about them, and I just keep going. Don't have a clue.
I think after this is Under the Pyramids. That's the Harry Houdini story.
I can't wait. I love Harry Houdini, and I can't wait. But once again,
we should have him as a guest.
I think I know a psychic.
Okay, perfect.
But like I said, everyone, like we said in the last episode, I'm taking this. I am completely sheltered from what's coming next. I hear the name, and I read it.
Yeah, man. Well, we're going to do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, fellow weirdos.
No, let's do it.
Once again, we find ourselves lingering on the edge of the abyss that Lovecraft so masterfully presents. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Learning Lovecraft. I've been Jason McKittrick.
And I've been Ken James.
And we'll see you beyond the Wall of Sleep.